So I see that we are live. I just need uh, to mute the stream somehow.
Welcome, everybody. Uh, this is our second in several streams that we're going to be doing, specifically around the Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2025 release that will be coming up soon. My name is Brooks, and I have Asger with me tonight, who is
Hi.
a co-developer. We're going to deep dive into some other things, in addition to kind of what we want to talk about this new release. We've had a stream already about it. You can go catch it on the video on demand on Twitch, or I believe it's actually live on YouTube already. If you want to go back and watch that video, it was just kind of me going over some of the highlights of what we're doing, as well as reacting to some questions from the folks that joined us, and we just had discussions about some of the new features and how they were going to impact the game. So tonight I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to announce that First Access will be going live on Tuesday. So we'll be doing another stream on Tuesday. Gary will be there to help kick it off. And so we'll turn the store on at that point. Folks will be able to purchase for First Access. As a reminder, First Access is kind of our early access mode where we give you a little bit of a discount, buy the game early. You end up with a Steam key as well out of the deal. So it allows you to get into the game early, gets you that discount. And then in return, we ask that you treat it kind of like a beta, where any things that you notice that need to be corrected, obviously any crashes, we want to fix those as quick as possible. But any issues you come across, any requests that you have, First Access is the time to do that. It's a great time to interact with us. We still have time to fix any things that happen, but we also have time to implement things that the community wants. So we'll encourage everyone to join us on the stream Tuesday. Obviously, those of you who already decided to buy the game, we're very appreciative of that, and we're looking forward to having you along for the ride. So I wanted to get that out of the way because I wanted to definitely announce that date just so everybody is aware. If you're watching the replay on this or on YouTube, then that'll be Tuesday, November 5th, which is going to be quite an exciting day for us in the States anyway. So, yeah, so Asger is here. So I'm going to do a quick recap of some of the major features that we have going on in Pro Football 25. So apologies to those of you who have joined a couple of streams. This is just going to be a quick rehash. But in general, the main highlight of this is the new platform that we've moved to. So the new platform allows us to speed up some of the nagging issues that we had going on with the game. It allows us to implement some new controls that enable some new features. It basically is just an update to a more modern version of the platform that we're using at the moment. So we're really excited about it because it really allows people to focus on the game and all the features that we have within the game, and less on kind of the nagging things about screen switching or screens that take too long to load or whatever. So we've taken care of that. The new platform's super fast. I have a league loaded up where I can just click around and you kind of get an idea for how quickly these screens will change.
We're
And
not
think
seeing your screen though, Brooks. It's at least I'm not. Is the chat seeing it? I'm just getting like a default screen on the stream.
Yeah, so folks in the chat could confirm that you can see the screen. I see it. I have it pulled up on a different monitor, and confirm that you can hear Asger, just to make sure his audio is coming through as well. Asger, you might need to refresh your browser if it went live after you started viewing it. And
Yeah, yeah. Now I got a commercial.
that I usually wait 30 seconds or a minute after I launch the stream to start talking because I usually have those commercials pop up in the very
Okay,
beginning too. So
that's
apologies.
fine. My bad.
No worries. Um, so just as an example, switching between these screens is super fast, and even the player search is now like almost like an infinite scrolling grid. So we have thousands of players loaded up in this grid at this point, and it runs super fast. There's no screen flickering when you change the the tabs up here to find your different players, retired players, and so on. It switches really fast. So we've talked about it before. We've talked about it with our college football game. We've got a lot of good reviews on it. People are very happy about the changes that we've made. So we're hoping that this allows us to focus more on some of the other features and less on just the day-to-day maintenance of the app. But wanted to highlight that. Pull up my list to make sure I don't miss anything else. So the other thing that the new platform enables is the ability to change from light mode to dark mode. And a lot of folks, have preferences with these things. The game's kind of designed for dark mode because that's just kind of what we all use. But for folks who don't like the dark mode or have trouble seeing it or whatever, we do have this option to do a light mode, which apologies, that's going to be really bright in the stream. But it does allow you to flip back and forth, which is going to be helpful to those folks that are sensitive to it or prefer the light mode in general. So we wanted to show that we did enable that. Obviously, during first access, if you come across any screens that don't look quite right or aren't working the way you want, feel free to reach out to us and let us know. So that's kind of the theme preferences that we have there. We've also, because it is Pro Football 25, we're going to launch with new default rosters. So the rosters have been updated. We've updated the scheduling logic as well. So now you'll have more realistic schedules based off of pro seasons. So some of the issues we've had in the past with bye weeks and home games, running too many home games or away games in a row, those kinds of things should be much better going forward. Some of the other highlights that we've kind of brought over from college, which we got pretty warm reception there, is the ability to assign an expanded coaching staff. So in addition to your head coach, GM, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, we've also opened up trainers, scouts, and position coaches. So these will show up now where you make offers to your coaches, and their role is specifically tied to, like, we've basically tried to take away some of the roles and responsibilities from the other positions and move them into your trainer and scout and position coaches. So now you'll have to hire the whole staff, and everybody will have their unique ability to handle different parts of a football staff. So the trainers will focus on getting your players trained up, healed up, those kinds of things, make sure they stay healthy. The scout will help you when we're doing scouting, and we can show some scouting screens here in a bit. And then the position coaches are going to be responsible for, like, during season, in-season training, off-season training. So it'll be their attributes that will drive a lot of that instead of just driving everything off of your head coach. Now all these different positions will matter, and you'll have to hire those folks accordingly. And currently, the way we have it set up for hiring is, like, for a head coach, you can hire a head coach or coordinators to be your head coach. If you're a coordinator, you can hire, like, the head coaches and coordinators are kind of interchangeable. The rest of these aren't. They're not really set up in a way where we want people pulling in quarterback coaches up to head coaches just yet. We're evaluating it for first access. If we can come up with a semi-realistic way of doing it, we'll try and get that kind of thing in. But for now, they're different enough where you wouldn't really want to do that. But we haven't fully evaluated how we're going to handle a progression of all of their ratings as they go through their careers. So we definitely have it on the list because we think that would be a fun way of also making some of these more these positions more impactful. So you can see a quarterback coach go take a OC position at some competitor that you're like a division rival or something like that. Would be kind of fun to see folks do that. But in order to do that, we have to make it where a quarterback coach would make a good offensive coordinator, and right now they don't. So that's something we're going to be evaluating for First Access. We do have an updated scouting stage, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then we also have updated draftee profiles, so you can see the results of your scouting. And then we also have a new concept for us for player holdouts. So we're fortunate that Asger's here because he's been working hard on the holdout code. And so I'm gonna go through scouting first, and then we'll come back to holdout. Well, actually, I'm gonna do holdouts first because I'm already in a league that's got a holdout. So
Yep.
At this point, I've run a couple of seasons forward, and I have a newspaper article here where Jermaine here for New York has decided that he's going to hold out, and you'll have a few of these at the beginning of seasons that are not happy with their contracts. And so if I go to New York here, oh, I picked the wrong New York. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. You see at this point, Jermaine has the icon for currently holding out, and he'll have a tag here for currently holding out. So Asger, why don't you kind of give us an idea of what this is, how it happens, and how folks can resolve it?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's something that people have been wanting for a while, because it's something that happens every season in real life. So I've been tinkering a lot with how to make it realistic. And basically, if you have a player that performed really, really well the last season, the previous season, but is still among the worst, well, not among the best paid at all, like far down the list, they will want a new contract. And depending on a bunch of specifics about the personality, etc., and the position and such, they may eventually decide to hold out. And when players hold out, just like in real life, they won't be training and they won't be playing. So basically, once a player holds out, they will just be doing nothing. They won't be training. They won't be playing. They can't do mentor stuff. And you can't do the coach focus training on them because they just won't be at the facility, right? They'll just be at home with a personal trainer or whatever, just keeping in shape. So just like in real life, eventually some of these players may cave, so like 4 or 5 or 6 weeks of regular season goes by, and the guy decides maybe it's better for me to just play the game. So I'll get to you, Garrett, on that. So eventually they will cave, but generally you'll need to give them a new contract because they're just not being paid like a premier guy at their position because you gave them some shitty contract for when they were bad, and now they're good and they want to be compensated. So generally you need to give them a new contract or trade them. But some of them may eventually cave and just decide that it's better to be on the field. So Garrett is asking whether or not it's based on ratings if they hold out. Yeah, well, it's based on their performance and their salary mostly. But then depending on their ratings, and we'll return to that in a second as well, because there's a bunch of under the hood personality stuff. But the most obvious one that is visible to the players is the cares about money, right? So all of the players have a care about money, and if they really care about money, there's a much higher chance that they'll hold out to get a better contract. Yeah, and if you stay on this screen here, Brooks, with the bio stuff, we can just return to some of the personality under the hood stuff. So after every training camp, all of your coaches will give you a report on a player. So for every player, you'll see this assessment in the middle of the screen that we have right here. where each of the coaches are reporting on the stuff that's relevant to them. So, for instance, here Paul Bradley, the offensive line coach, says this guy is masterful at playing tackle. Um, and what's interesting here in terms of personality is that the scouts will actually tell you about how they behave socially. And I know that for a long time, people have been sort of puzzled by the social types of the players, and all along, these social types have been actually based on a range of under the hood ratings, which is basically if you go to the internet, go on the internet and find your like the most complicated personality test you can find. All of the players have these parameters, and until now, these parameters have just been manifested into the social type. But now I've actually made the scouts actually tell you a bit about how they behave and how they work socially in the team. So if we look at this particular guy, he's actually very submissive. He doesn't talk back. He's fairly pessimistic, and he's fairly autonomous. He doesn't like being told what to do, but he's also egoistic. So he cares a lot about himself, and he's not super exciting to be around. And all of this is based on these hidden personality ratings, which is basically like a personality test that you can find on the internet. And these ratings as well will go into, just to get back to your question, Garrett, these ratings as well will go into whether or not they'll hold out. So if somebody is like super self-confident and has a very optimistic view of the world or whatever, they'll think that good things will come from whatever decision they make, and they may decide to hold out longer or decide that hold out is a good idea. So that's just so some of the ratings determine whether or not they hold out, and some of the ratings determine how long they will hold out. As a rule of thumb, they will hold out until you give them a new contract. Eventually, some of them might cave, but it's not something that you can bank on. Um, and as with real life, eventually they get traded or they get paid, right? Um, so that's just basically what we're doing with holdouts. We're just trying to mirror like the real world, where eventually, if you have some guy that's like super good but is super underpaid, they want a new contract. And people have been asking for this for I don't know how many versions now. And now we actually reached a point where we thought, well, this is actually a good thing for the game to spend our time on doing that.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, I think that's it. Is there anything more about holdouts that we should
I know. I
know?
think that's a great explanation of it. I think the assessments are going to be a lot of useful information, like directly immersive information about players that folks haven't had in the past. It's pretty interesting that we have had a lot of this underlying data that drives a lot of our news stories or kind of the back and forth behaviors of what the players do, but it's never been highlighted. We kind of kept it in the background because it
Yeah,
just makes the players more interesting and less robotic. But now we can surface it up, and it brings some of this to light for the player to see.
yeah. So I actually we should have talked about this a long time ago, because I added all of these like this whole personality barrage of tests below the hood for a couple of versions ago, and it's actually driving a lot of the a lot of the interactions that's going on between players, who likes who and who gets into fights and who complains about coaches, etc., etc. So it's actually already doing a lot of work in the game, but we've just never been like super explicit about it. So I think just doing this right now is a good chance. Now we can actually also tell people about some of the characteristics of the players, which I kind of like, because that's sort of what I do in my ordinary work as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it's a fantastic ad. A lot of this stuff is still going to be the same as it has been in past versions, but yeah, that's the big change specifically uh, for the player page and for holdouts specifically. I think that the byproduct of this as well is going to be uh, for online leagues where somebody may have gotten away with grabbing a player really cheap and everybody grumbles about it, but they were the ones that had the money at the right time, or they snagged somebody off a free agent wire that you know maybe should have asked for more money or whatever. This is the way to kind of corral that and make it where, yeah, you can undercut them a little bit, but if you do it too much or you do it to the wrong player, then yeah, they're going to hold out, and you lose a full season with them. So this is
Yeah,
this is going to
I
be
remember
a
back in like 2012 or 14 when I was playing like the original Pro Football Simulator uh, before it was merged with Wolverine, etc. And I got on board. This thing about giving players 7-year contracts on really low salaries and just banking on them being good in like 4 or 5 seasons, that's still a thing, I think. So these holdouts will actually go some ways towards corralling that.
Yeah, we don't
Um,
we don't expect it to happen as much as it did back in the day. With the players just don't like long term minimum deals. They won't sign them like they used to. But this
yeah.
also catches a lot of those that might fall through the cracks. Um, okay, so I'm going to switch over to a different league.
Yeah, and before that, I can just Alpha is asking whether or not we can play, whether or not he can play on Apple or on Mac. And from what I remember, you can do it's like a Windows box or like a virtual Windows thing on Mac, and then you can play the games.
Yeah, typically our recommendation has been to fire up um, Mac Parallels and then install Windows on Mac Parallels and then play the game that way. It's a workaround. We're not super happy with that. We'd love to have our games run natively on Macs, but that's not available at the moment. It's been on my radar for a long time, but it's a little more complicated uh, than just flipping a flag or something like that. It's gonna require a concerted effort from us to be able to do that kind of thing. But at some point in the future, we'd love to be able to support it, but not this version. So,
Yeah.
but again,
So
if you
just
run Parallels, it'll run fine on Windows inside Parallels if that's what you want to do.
yeah. So it's doable in Parallels, but it's not made for Mac.
Yeah, and Alpha specifically asking about the game porting toolkit. So I have looked at it. This game doesn't work in that way to where that toolkit works. But again, we are. I do keep an eye on it because I would love to support it at some time in the future. But unfortunately, it's not going to be not going to be for these versions. Okay, so I've switched over to a different league at this point. I wanted to show off how scouting works now. So for scouting, in the past, we've had two options where you could interview or you could scout a player, and you had one shot at it, and you had a boatload of points, and you had to spend all those points for the 300 you know draftees that are in a draft class. You had to figure out who you thought you wanted to interview and who you thought you wanted to scout. You had to pick them all up front, and then you click the advance button and move on to the draft. And that just wasn't good enough, to be honest. We wanted to improve this. So what we've done is we've added more options here instead of just scout, because again, now that we have all these staff positions, we want to get more of a variety. And we've also unlocked the ability to come back to this screen and re-interview, or not re-interview, but interview additional players or scout additional players during the draft. So if you pick a few of these and then you run a draft round, and I'm just going to pick a few of these real quick just so you can kind of see how it works.
You can just click Auto Scout and then unclick a
If
few.
I click Auto Scout, it will do the old version of the way this works. It'll auto scout all of them and use up all of your points. So specifically,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that because I want to show that if you do want to draft round by round, the concept is that you would scout a few players that you're looking at for round one. Complete your scouting. You can go back into it, look at it. Now these have all been completed, but you can still go back and add more. And the way this works is if you add more and then you go into the draft, now at this point I could finish a round and then come back to this page and perform some more interviews and scout some more players. So that's kind of the nice addition we've done to this, so that folks don't have to scout the entire draft at once. You could do a few for round one, sim round one, go back, do a few for round two, sim it, that kind of thing. So if you want, Asger, you could talk through what these different.
Yeah, if you just scout someone for everything,
Okay.
just like click on all of them.
I'm
And
gonna pick somebody down here that doesn't get
yeah.
drafted. So now I've simmed around. So now all of these took effect, and now this guy is fully scouted. Oh.
Yeah. And then go into the player card. So basically, so this will look fairly familiar with to the assessment that you got from your coaches about your regular players, right? So on top, you have your scout who's been talking to his college teammates, and he gives you how he interacts socially. So this guy is somewhat of a loner, somewhat of a pessimist, and you even got his social type as well, which is unlocked by the scout. So he is an ambitious loner. At the bottom right, you can see that your head coach is noticing nothing out of the ordinary with respect to his interview, and his college coaches, which your GM has been talking to, he has looked at. Actually, these should be showing, Brooks. We should look into why they're not showing the sportsmanship, competitiveness, leadership. They should be unlocked as well. We'll look into that. Anyhow, so the head coach in the interview information, he will unlock information about his traits. So if this guy is like a deep threat or a slot receiver or a bookend tackle or whatever, it'll show on the head coach information. On the report from college coaches, when you talk about his coaches from college, they'll tell you how he works in the team, right? So they'll tell you something about his leadership and team play and work ethic and his positional skill. And they will also tell you about his potential. Usually in the older versions, we had, you got information about the potential in an email, and people were not very happy about that because they needed to go back through all of their emails to look at the potential. So right now, the potential is coarse-grained, to say the least. And we even added a note from the general manager here who says that, well, remember that potential is no guarantee. There's lots of players who have potential, so you can't just go around picking the guys with good or great potential and expect them to be great, because there are so many factors in player development that potential alone is no guarantee. So it's not like something like Football Manager, that where you find the wonder kids, then you're certain that they'll become Cristiano Ronaldo eventually, right? There are lots of players in the game with good potential, but you get an indication about where it is. And your trainer has done a workout with them here, and he'll tell you about their strength, speed, agility, and endurance. And he will even give like an assessment. And similarly for your position coach. So in this case, we're talking about a free safety. And so it's your defensive back coach who's giving the assessment, and he's telling you that he's, well, fairly good at tackling, and he's fairly intelligent, and he's pretty good at his position. So what we really tried is to make each of these different coaches give you at least one piece of valuable information, right? So obviously the potential is valuable, the flags and traits is valuable. The social type is somewhat valuable if you're the kind of person who likes to build teams that have synergy. And in case you didn't know, synergy matters. If the players are happy, they play better. And traditionally, people would care a lot about the workout, so they would care a lot about speed and strength, right? So that's valuable in itself. And similarly, the game tape information about their particular skills that are relevant to their position is also valuable. So we really try to give to make each of these different actions that you can take on your scouting to give you valuable information. So it's not like people will only do one thing and that would be enough to make decisions. Um, so that's sort of what we've been trying to do here. Brooks, if you find a player that's not scouted at all, so they can just get a view of the default information.
There you go.
Yep. So for the default information, before you decide who to scout, what you get is these overall scout grades, which they're basically your scout watching television and reading up on the player, and so this would be publicly available information, right? And they'll give you like these standard coarse-grained data that you're already familiar with from the earlier versions about physique, athleticism, technique, football IQ, and intangibles, along with some coach grades. And the coach grades you also know from the earlier version. What is different in this version is that we've actually added a bit of fog of war. So these coach grades aren't as set in stone as they were in the earlier versions. They will actually be based on your coach's ability to scout, their accessibility in particular, to a wider extent than they were earlier. So these won't show the same, or at least close to the same for every team. They're still a good guideline in terms of how good a player overall is. But they're not as uniform as they used to be. And I even added there's a setting now where you can actually disable this fog of war on coach grades, so you get a more straightforward answer. But we just didn't want the coach grades to be, again, like simple information you can just draft based on that. We want people to actually do the scouting and get more information. Yeah, I can tell you about the coach grades CD Cool. So basically, the coach grades is an assessment from the coach based on how the coach perceives the player's skills and attributes, along with what the coach likes. So if you have a coach that likes tall receivers and you have a coach that likes fast receivers, they will actually give you different grades for receivers, even if everything except height or speed is the same. So the numbers themselves. So we actually had a question about this on our Discord recently. So the numbers themselves, there isn't like an 31.5 out of something. Yeah, so exactly, Breeze. There isn't like an actual maximum because it depends on what each coach likes. And I guess I could calculate the actual maximum that was possible at all to get, but that would only be possible for coaches with certain preferences, right? But as a rule of thumb, 40 is the maximum, and rarely will you see people in the high 30s. So something like 31 or 35, that should be like a first round prospect. But again, it depends on what the coach likes. And if you're running something else that the coach likes, if you don't like tall receivers, or if you don't like, shifty running backs and prefer bulldozer running backs, then the coach grade won't be as important to you. Which is another reason to hire coaches that, that sort of conform to what you want to do with the team. Otherwise, you can't really rely on their grades because they're trying to tell you, what fits in their system. But as a rule of thumb, 40 is the max.
Yeah, that'll be a nice add to this. What we're trying to avoid is having folks pick one aspect of a player, whether it's the combine and their 40 time, or the coach grades based off of the head coach grade, or any of the information that we have. We don't want people just like finding the highest number and then picking them. Right? Obviously, you could do that if you want, but we're trying to
Yeah,
make
but
it
then
more realistic, more immersive, and to actually give folks more information that for those guys who want to do the work, want to find those guys that are absolutely perfect for their system, want to find guys that might be gems. For first rounders, none of this stuff really matters all that much. It because it's a first round pick, right? You're going to grab the best wide receiver at the position or whatever. But as you get into the second round, third round, fourth round, that's where you're going to start to see some differentiation in these players, and you're going to want to, analyze all the available data that you have because you don't like first round picks still matter. You don't want to make a mistake and pick, a great athletic kid that's got a really bad attitude. So you're going to want to pay attention to some of it. But when you're getting into those later draft rounds, that's where you'll be able to find some real good diamonds in the rough specifically for your team. So it's nice
yeah,
to have all of this extra information there for that.
and you're gonna of course go like uh, tunnel vision, single-minded on one coach, one grade, or one aspect if you want, but then you'll end up with Jamarcus Russell, right?
Yeah. So in this case, the head coach has a 31.5, but the defensive coordinator is 21.5. So there's something about this kid that maybe the DC is not super thrilled with. Maybe he's looking for something a little bit different based off of the system that he wants to run. So I mean, it's not going to be a bad kid. He's still, I think this is a projected third rounder. But, there's a little bit of a difference of opinion there. So you'd have to look at, um, this would be a kid where you'd want to interview and get some more of this information so you could see exactly what's driving those grades and then, make a better informed decision at that point.
Yep. I'm pretty happy with it. I've been wanting to do more with the scouting for a while, and now we finally got around to it. So that's pretty. And obviously, it's amenable to tweaks whenever we find something that, well, this is too unreliable, or this is too easy, or this is a get dead giveaway, something like that. Um, but um, but overall, we're pretty happy
Yeah. So
with that. I think it'll be more challenging, which is good.
yeah, I'm flipping through some screens just to kind of show everybody what this is going to look like. So you still have some of the um, same screens that you had before. You still your interview kids, and you're going to get these data points that show up still in these lists. You still have the combine that you can look at. So there's still a lot of those options to go by. Um, so yeah, we're hoping that this becomes a nice new feature within the game. We're still evaluating scouting points because we have so many more staff members now, and there's more actions to take. We're going to be rebalancing how the scouting points work, specifically around how much each of these things costs based off of how valuable we think the information is going to be, and then we'll make sure that the scouting points available matches up so that you can't just click everybody in every column and then get all of the information. It's not going to work like that. You're going to have to pick and choose. But again, by being able to scout individual players between rounds, it means we can get away with a lot fewer scouting points because you don't have to scout 100 kids. You could scout, somewhere like if you draft 15th, you might pick players that you think are going to go 12 to 18 or so and just analyze those kids. And then when you get to the second round, you might pick a band of those that you think are going to fall to you, and then so on and so forth as you see how the draft unfolds. So we'll probably be significantly reducing the number of scouting points for that reason, but um, that's kind of where our heads are at with that. Um, so yeah, uh,
Nice.
at this point, I want to throw it out to the folks in the chat. If there are any questions or any other screens you'd like to see, like again, some of this we went into a little bit more detail on the features of Pro Football 25 in our last stream. I don't want to redo everything, but if there's anything specific you guys want to see, let me know. Um,
Yeah. Can you load up a league that's sort of like the end of the season as well, just so I can talk about like the news filters again.
yeah, I
Hi,
can.
Matt Al. Welcome. Oh, you can just sim the season.
Yeah,
That also works.
it's almost faster to sim the season than it is to reload a new league. So
Yeah. I really love this new interface, I have to say. And I know that we talk about our interfaces a lot, but just in terms of like me contributing to actually building the interface, this is way easier than the old one. So even though Brooks has done a tremendous job in just porting everything over to this one, I'm looking forward to not just leaving him on his own to do everything. Um,
I mean, I mean, to be honest, it was the biggest piece of feedback that we've been getting over the last version or two, is that folks really didn't like. Oh, we kept adding more and more data. The more and more data we added, the slower and slower the interface would get. So it was time. It was time to swap it out to something that could handle it a little bit better. And we took the
yeah.
plunge and we did it. And again, first access is coming up soon. It'll come. We'll do it on Tuesday. You guys to get your hands on it, and obviously when you re-platform, there's going to be things that we missed, things that need some additional attention. So just we appreciate all of you who jump in early and help us beta test. But for those of you who joined first access, again, it's imperative that you guys let us know about any issues so that we can take care of them during the first access period. So we appreciate you giving us all that feedback. At this point, just assume that if something doesn't work, it's not intentional. It's something that either I missed or I hadn't gotten to yet. So there's still time to fix those issues. All right, what did you want me to look at from this point?
Yeah, can you go to media and the newspaper? Yeah, so I spent some time earlier today and the other day just trying to make sure that all of the tags on all of the newspaper articles were up to snuff. So basically, it's been my impression that people aren't looking a lot at the newspaper because it just gets too crowded. There's just so much information there, and a lot of the information will be like random coaches signing and re-signing and declining offers and stuff like that. So I went actually through like literally more than 100 newspaper articles and made sure that the tags for these were properly assigned, so you could actually filter them properly. So if you go to the filters and you take something like pundits, now you'll actually get all the juicy stuff, and with all of the analysis and all of the players fighting and um, like analysis of games of the week, or whose O line is doing well, or which player was bitching about his coaches calling bad plays and stuff like that. And that also helps because then people can actually sort of see a bunch of the personality stuff that's actually running, gone largely unnoticed, where people get into fights and they start they have like a back and forth over several weeks where one will reply and the other one will get more angry and stuff like that. And similar in the other filters, you'll actually be able to get like just the information that you want. If you just want to look up game recaps for the entire season, you can go to games. If you just want to see players getting traded or doing well in camp or getting new contracts, you can select the player filter, etc., etc. So I'm hoping that actually the newspaper will be a bit more useful now because you can actually decrowd it using the filters. Um, which, for me, because I spent a lot of time over the last, 6 or 8 years, uh, when I've been working on this game, just like writing up all of these different kinds of articles that are in here. And it just feels, silly that they're not sort of, being appreciated the right way. I know this is like maybe an egotistical point of view, um, but there is some interesting information here and there. Also, like a little nugget for the Twitch stream here is that most of our pundits, so like Jeremy Piper, Mary Moore, and Jim Knox, and Jeremy Francis, and a bunch of the other people that you'll see in our media personalities, they're actually based on some of our original super users. They're not called exactly these names, but but they're based on them. So if you stick around, maybe you'll end up in the newspaper in the game. Um, yeah, so that was just like a little would you say pet peeve of mine that I wanted to get out there.
No,
Um,
I think that's great information for folks. Like we've said for a long time that there is more to this game than just spreadsheets and dice rolls, right? It's the the game itself, the way the engine works, the physical attributes of the way the players move on the field. That's a lot more complicated than what folks may realize. But you don't see it because it's part of the game, and but it's there. And the same way with a lot of this newspaper stuff, right? And a lot of these other features. It's not just the newspaper, but all these screens are here for a reason, right? They have information to either delight you and make it more fun to play, or to inform you on things that are happening in your game to make better educated decisions, to make things more realistic, to make you feel more immersed. And even we as developers, we forget how much is actually here at times. And it's a good reminder to go back in and review these things from time to time and to see what's all been added, to see what kind of information we're surfacing up via newspaper, or things like emails, right? Emails have a treasure trove of information. You should probably be checking your email after every sim just to see what's all going on, because we do try and alert people of things that are going on, your mentoring progress or injuries, or some draft sleepers. Like this is a potential email that we talked about where we try and surface this up on the player themselves, but it's nice to get emails alerting you that hey, your scout is actually telling you this person may warrant another look. So yeah, we encourage you to look at your emails, to look at the media pages, to look at the newspaper, um, and all of those things, because yeah, there'll be fun nuggets of information in there that I think will aid in your draft day sports experience for sure. Have you got feedback now? The new layouts for our fantasy guides, or we try and touch a little bit of everything. We try and make these things better in the different ways that we can. So whether it's updating magazines or adding more and more pages and more information, like this page where we're doing salary analysis, I completely forgot that this even existed. And I looking through it, there's so much information in here that's helpful in some form or fashion. Knowing who the highest paid players are, knowing the average salary bands that your particular league is in, especially those of you who who are into custom leagues and you cut up a lot of or you set up a lot of custom scenarios. Like this kind of stuff is fantastic information to see kind of how the engine is handling your particular scenario. The staff to know who the highest paid staff members are, and those kinds of things. So yeah, we're really happy with how all these things have coalesced over the years. And as we do every year when we launch a new version, we try and put some new stuff in, but we also like to harken back to the stuff that already is there that maybe folks aren't aware of and may make their gaming experience that much better. So
yeah, I think maybe I should also like just talk about a bit of the engine stuff that I've been working on. So those who have been with us for several years know that once we introduce like features, we start by giving them a little effect, and then we ramp it up until we find a reasonable place. And one of the things that we've been doing this year is that we've been looking at the player position skill. And in particular, this will have a much more fine-grained and much more nuanced impact on player performance on the field. Um, so, in general, going forward, position skill will be more important. You can't just take a player and change his position and expect him to do really good immediately. It takes time to learn a position. But if we are going to ramp up that, we also need to give the users a chance to actually train the position skill. So based on a bunch of feedback, I talked to some of the multiplayer leagues, and I usually drop by their Discord and stay for a month and in their Discord and ask questions, and then move on and go to the next multiplayer league and talk to them for a while. But one of the things that we heard was that in particular the coach focus training wasn't working as well as intended. So I went back and looked at that, and I actually found that it was too hard for the players to benefit from the coach focus training. So we ramped up that, because that's one of the good places to train position skill. But we've also added so it's easier to progress in position skill if you just get playing time. And as well, the mentoring will help with position skill as well. But that's one of the major things that we've been doing under the hood for this version, is that in a bunch of new places, the position skill will matter more, and in all of the places that it already mattered, it matters in a more nuanced fashion. So there will be like different more checks or more difficult checks for small benefits or small nerfs on the performance. So that's one of the major things that we've been doing under the hood in terms of the game engine for this version as well.
Yeah, so
We've
there's
done a bunch of other things, but this was like a really pervasive change.
this is where the focus, where you're able to focus on a particular player as part of your training. These things are, yeah, we try to enhance a little bit every time. Things that weren't working so well in the past, we've tried to improve. Things that worked well, we tried to surface them up so folks know that they're available. A lot of these things we actually make as settings that you can change, so that you can ramp things up or down depending on what your needs are. So things like the coaching progression, age regression, position development, mentor effects, like all of these things are configurable for those of you who want to tinker. The coach grade fog of war is in here. We've added percentages next to your play calls so that it helps kind of understand what percentages are going to be called for run pass.
Maybe show that. Actually, maybe show
yeah,
that.
I'll flip back to that. The include blitzes and playbooks. If you wanna chat about that, that's another feature that we've added so that folks can handle their blitzing inside their playbooks versus forcing the AI to only call blitzes. Yeah, there's lots of settings that we've gone in to tweak. All of the salary stuff is all still here. Coach penalties, retiring player penalties, all of these things are all configurable. So, yeah, this is definitely a place to look if you're not getting the exact behaviors that you're looking for out of your league. I talked about last stream about play calling overrides that allow you to change the way the AI calls plays if you want to put specific guardrails in to make things work better for you. So those things are all there. The play calling is under play calling. So this is where we've gone in and kind of done the math for you. So if you have a league that is set up to roughly do 60-40 splits or 55-45 splits for run pass, then 67% or 67 of a weight would give you about a 62% chance to call a pass. We say about because there's other things that go on behind the scenes that might drive this number up or down. But it kind of gives you an idea based off of how your league is configured what this number would be. So even if I set this to 100, it's only going to get you to 72% passing. So a lot of people, I think, underestimate these numbers. They put, I only want to run 60% of the time. But if you do that, it doesn't exactly work that way. So I really want on 1st and 10, I really want to be passing every time. Well, the best you can get to is about 72%. So this is based off of configurations that are inside that league configuration screen, where you can actually set up ratios if you want to you want to force your league into more of a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of league where they run all the time and they don't pass and that kind of thing. Or if you want to set up some kind of massive passing league where everybody's just airing it out, going for 6,000-7,000 yards a year, that kind of thing, then you can configure those values in that configuration screen. this is just the calculation to let the users know kind of what their numbers are amounting to. So
Yeah, and if you don't want to look at these percentages assessments, you can just turn it off in the settings.
yep. Okay, so I'm gonna look through some of these questions.
Yeah, there was a question very early on, which was if the AI can, if you can ask the AI to handle staff signings. Right now, if you're a human-controlled team, you can't. So there are the general option would be to just turn your team off human control during the staff signing period and then turn it back on afterwards. But given how much we just harped about how we give the player options, I think it should be doable to just add an option that says auto hire staff in the team settings or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
if you're running a team, like you actually have your team set up to be human owned, it's kind of on you to go through the staff signing phases and actually sign your coaches. If you don't, and you just let it ride, then the AI will actually generate an internal hire for your team, which is not ideal. Like they're not terrible, like they'll still function, but you're really missing out, and it'll just you'll sign it for 1 year, they'll fall back off after the year, and then you'll have to go through it all again. So if you're running a human team, you're definitely going to want to participate in that phase, and go from there. And the position coaches again are they're new, so there's going to be lots of them. There's going to be lots of folks that will have to take feedback on how complicated that is, and whether that's hit the mark in the way that we want to implement that. It very well could be we add some kind of CPU button to let people automate offering staff. But again, we're really hoping that people play the game and that they participate in that aspect of it, because it is important to how your team is run. The other questions I see, the recent questions are: was the Zoom feature removed? The Zoom feature is gone. We've still got the perspective view that you can turn on or off, and we have the different player visualization set up. So you either have the animated figure running around the field, or you can use the bubbles with the position on them or whatever. So those are all still there, and we've actually done the full screen where it doesn't go in and out. It's once you're in full screen, you could kind of watch the game that way. It's not going to do the zoom in and out constantly like it did before. Um, the other benefit of the platform that we've done is that we're hoping that the game scales a little crisper when you're looking on high resolution monitors. So when you're going up to 2K monitors, 2560 by 1440, or 4K monitors, ultra wides, like we're hoping that the game scales a little bit better and that the font's a little bit easier to read. We're also hoping that it's easier to read on smaller formats. So if you're at 1920 by 1080 on a small laptop or whatever, that we're hoping that all of these screens are still usable. We had some issues in the past with the font getting really tiny on some of those screens, so we're hoping that that you don't experience that with this version of it. But like with all things, if you have feedback on it, please let us know, and we'll work on it to get it corrected. The other question is, do games like the championship play on a neutral field? I'll be honest, I put that in at one point, but I don't remember if I did it for the pro game or the college game, to where the championship games get all the home field advantages get nullified in those cases. So I'll take a note to look at that and make sure that it's in there. If I
yeah,
did it in one game, I'll flip it over to the other one. But
I'm pretty sure all the home game advantages aren't nullified. What I'm unsure about is whether or not the field graphics will show one of the team's logos or like for the home games.
It will still do
Uh,
that. Yeah, that if we
yeah.
didn't change the way the images work, so the home team logos will still show up on the field for the championship games. What people have done in the past is they've figured out who that championship team is. They go into that team, and then they change the logos for the team, sim the
Mm.
game, and then go back into the team and flip it back to their old logos if they really want the field to have a specific look and feel for that particular game. So that's kind of a fun workaround that somebody in the community uh, found out, so that they when they rewatch the game they can actually see that when they broadcast their games or whatever they could actually show the field that they wanted to
Yeah,
show.
because the multiplayer leagues have their own logos and stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that they're using. I'm not sure what ODDs mean. CD Cool.
odds. I think he's
Odds.
asking about the game lines. I don't remember if our
It
upsets are driven based off of the lines or if they're just based off of
they're
general
based on
consensus of record and
yeah
play and team ranking.
yeah they're based on the current wins of the teams. So and I don't remember the cutoffs for something to be an upset, but if you have like a 1-6 team facing a 6-1 team, that'll certainly count as an upset. But it's based on their standings.
Yeah,
At the game time, right?
the odds are so loose. I mean, they're not really baked in any kind of expected result. It's using a concept called ELO, which is more of a mathematical concept than anything else, where teams that overperform get higher ELOs and teams that underperform get lower ELOs. And over time, you move up and down on the ELO scale. And the line is somebody's best estimate of when you're comparing ELOs, what would the line be? So if you find that the lines aren't super accurate for your purposes, there is a configuration here to change the spread, I believe. Um, I don't remember where it's at, but it's
Yeah.
the spread range. So you could change this number to see if you can get more realistic spread numbers. It kind of if you want to see uh, something that looks more realistic with day to day, you can tinker with this number and maybe get results that are better for you. The spreads also change throughout the year because as the ELOs change, um, that's kind of what your uh, what it looks like when that kind of thing happens. So that's that's how those odds work. Um,
Yeah. But for the newspaper article specifically, it's using the standings
yeah.
because I made those before we introduced the ELO.
Yep. So I mean, it is something that we could look at, but again, it seems to be working as intended at the moment. Like the way that it detects who the upsets are seems like what we want. The college game is a little different because upsets are much more impactful in the college game when you see somebody knocking off a number one team or whatever. In the pro, there's so much um, similarity between these teams, parity, that is it really an upset at any point in time? Maybe not, but we definitely do call some of them out because we like the way that it generates the news articles. So we'll continue to do that. All right, we've been at it for a little over an hour. If there's any other questions, feel free to hop into our Discord channel or our Slack channels, or hit us up on the Draft Day Sports forum. We're always hanging out in those places to try and answer questions and to get folks excited about what's going on. Uh, I'll reiterate, we're expecting to launch First Access on Tuesday, and we hope to see everyone at that stream where Gary will talk a little bit more about the process and how this thing works. And then, yeah, for those of you, I mean, Asger did a deep dive tonight, kind of on holdouts and a little bit on scouting. And if you want to see some of the other features that I highlighted, I'd encourage you to go hit up the YouTube channel because I think that stream is over there. It's another hour or so where we went over different screens and answered questions from the community. So we're hoping that you guys are excited about the game. We're looking forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday. So big thank you to Asger. And this is way late, past his bedtime. We're gonna let him get out of here so he can get some sleep, so he can get back to coding bright tomorrow morning. But thank you,
Something like
yeah,
that.
thank you, Asger, for coming and joining us and giving us the details on this. I appreciate it.
Yeah, always a pleasure, man.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
See you
that's
guys.
yeah. I'll call it there. Thank you again for all the folks who hung out in the stream with us. We'll see you on the channels. Thanks.